This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Welcome to my favourite time of the week, Six Tackles with Gus for round 3 of the Premiership. What a great start. The footy's been awesome. On the menu today, is there cause for concern at Redfern, or are the bunnies poised for an ambush against the Roosters on Friday night? You'll see it here on 9 from Ilias. Here we go again. Manly and Para, the old Tui's ad. They're back up at Combank. That'll be sold out again. Multicultural round. Phil Gould sees it every day at Canterbury. How important is rugby league amongst the community more broadly and some of the great cultures that we have? Some great Askgus questions, and the round 3 menu is delicious as the first 2 courses, like I said. Are you hungry, Gus? Hello.
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
I'm good. Are you hungry?
Am I hungry?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, delicious footy coming up, and I've got John Rum's menu
I saw
for
that.
the Masters.
I saw that.
So the Masters champion gets to choose the menu for the champion's dinner.
Yep.
Now, if you don't like golf, just bear with us. It's about food, not golf. So do you want me to read it to you?
Matthew loves his golf. Go on.
So do you?
Yep.
I love my food more. So tapas. He's going to start, the great Spaniard starting with tapas.
What's tapas?
So it's like the little finger food sort of stuff.
Oh, okay.
You know. Acorn-fed Iberian ham and cured pork loin. So I'm assuming that's like a tart or something. Spicy Basque chorizo with potato. Some sort of cheese with black truffle. Mama Ram's classic lentil stew. Spanish omelette with onions and confit potatoes. And then the creamy chicken fritters with confit potatoes. Jeez, the Spanish love their potatoes. Everything's got potatoes with it.
Mm.
You happy with all that?
No.
All right. Well,
I'd have nothing to eat.
Right. First course is the Basque crab salad with, you guessed it, potato. Then the main course is a Basque ribeye with lettuce and peppers, no potato, and turbot. What's turbot? With Navarra white asparagus. You can have that. And for dessert, puff pastry cake with custard and Chantilly cream.
Yeah, there's only one dessert, mate.
What?
Apple pie and cream.
You'd have that though, wouldn't you?
No.
You wouldn't have it?
No. Well, I'd eat it if I was invited. I wish I was good enough to get invited.
I know. Wouldn't it be great?
You don't go there unless you've won a Masters.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I gave you some homework, which I don't think you read. What's Gus's? It's served in honour of Phil Gould dinner. What are you going to have?
If I won the Masters and had to do the menu.
You had to put the menu together.
I think we'd start with some steamed prawn dumplings.
Good.
And then some Peking duck.
Oh, yeah.
Second course, sanctuary bao. Some salt and pepper king prawns.
Hang on. This is your order from the local Chinese.
Some sizzling fillet steak. Pork chops with plum sauce. Some rice. And then probably top it off with mango pancakes.
Oh, yes.
The mango pancakes at Canterbury League's Chinese are the best.
Are they?
They're
I've
the
got to
best.
come out. I love mango pancakes.
They are the best.
Oh.
The best.
So this is the secret Chinese restaurant where you have all your secret meetings.
All the secret meetings, yeah. We had a meeting there one night. I can't forget who it was. It was with Reed Marnie back a couple of years ago. We're sitting in the Chinese restaurant, right? And I think it was Trent Barrett, and we had our chairman there, and had Peter Sharp, and we all took our wives and everything like that. And we're sitting around just having a nice meal, and his manager, Sam AU, and we're sitting there. And there is only one other table in the restaurant with people on it. Only one other table, right? Sitting about 15 metres to the left of us over there in the corner. And we're sitting there and suddenly get a notification on social media, our pictures on social media, from that table.
No.
And I just turned around and I said, really? Like, you didn't even wait till you left before you put it up on social media. Absolutely hilarious.
So they weren't trying to hide their identity by any...
Nah, 4 big buff-headed blokes sitting over there in the corner thought they'd be smart. And
What's the Chinese called at Canterbury Leagues?
Chinese. Dynasty, I think. Dynasty Chinese restaurant. It's outstanding.
You've never offered to shout me Chinese.
It's packed. Well, you're never in Belmore, mate.
Well, I'm more than happy to be for a free Chinese food.
You can get any sort of food in Belmore. Very multicultural, Belmore.
Well, great segue, Gus. It's multicultural around. Now, you see this day in, day out, what the Canterbury Club means to your community, which is so rich and diverse with culture. So multicultural round's a great round.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a great round for everywhere. Pacific, particularly with the dominance of the Pacific Island nations and the Pacific Island players, New Zealand players, and our own people from New South Wales country and our own Indigenous players, and then all the different cultures that we have around Sydney, because Sydney is a multicultural area, no more so than around that Belmore area. When I first went to the Bulldogs back in the 80s, it was very much a Greek supporter base.
Right.
And I would imagine that was because, A, the colours, blue and white, and B, because of Dr. George Paponis. But, you know, a lot of people moved into the area around those areas of Lebanese, many cultures that have moved into that area, and they've all adopted the Bulldogs. Hazem El Masri was a big part of that in the 90s when he played, and there have been many more since, and it's wonderful. Look, rugby league sport, it can be the fabric of the family. It can be the thing that actually keeps the family united and holds them together. It's one thing that they've all really got in common, and the thing I love most about the Bulldogs at the moment is the number of young kids that we get wanting to come and watch them train and wanting to come down to where they have a coffee in the cafe down the main street. And we encourage the boys to go out and get into all the eateries around Belmore and frequent the coffee shops and the sandwich bars and all those sort of areas, because people just love seeing them around. It's one multicultural. It's wonderful, and you know, it's really good. Like Peter V'landys told me when he first came out to us, Australia, his father, they were Greek and didn't speak the language, and he struggled at school to be accepted until he played rugby league. As soon as he played rugby league, total acceptance from the other kids in the school. His father got a job. They learned to speak English, and that's why he's so indebted to the game himself and why he's given so much of his time and effort towards it, because it's a big thing with families. And I've noticed even out west in the Penrith area, because there's out west particularly where accommodation is much more affordable and people come to Australia for the first time, and they have their little pockets of their sort of communities that they build, and schools and education things cater for them very, very well. You know, it's rugby league sport is so important to them. Of course, those that are born overseas or come from overseas parents, football, soccer has been a big part of their game, but rugby league wins them over eventually because all the kids are involved in rugby league. So when the kids go to school, they want to be a part of what they're doing. And even more so now with the girls' game. The women's game is an inspiration to all young girls and women everywhere, and it's giving them an opportunity to be a part of it. Remember our own Alada Ferguson, she grew up playing rugby league as a young girl. She said her heroes were the NRL players. She didn't have female heroes to follow in rugby league.
That's changing.
Whereas now that's changing dramatically. You know, young girls have got the, of all persuasions. We have clinics, we have junior league clinics out in the Belmore area, Canterbury area. 60% of them will be young girls coming along.
That's fantastic.
To be in the clinics. You know, it's terrific. And, you know, and with multiculturalism comes different religions and different beliefs and all sorts of things as well. And it's really a melting pot. It just gets everyone together. It's the one thing they've all got in common.
Hazem, how big a trailblazer was Hazem El Masri, do you reckon?
Massive.
He played for Australia. I think he played an Origin game.
Massive.
But maybe the best goal kicker in the history of the game. But he brought the whole Muslim community along the ride.
Amazing.
And they're the most passionate fans.
Absolutely. It's identity, it's hero status, it's and a feeling of belonging, and that's what you want. You know, particularly people who come to a new country where English might not even be their first or chosen language. It's a very, very special area, the Canterbury area, for that especially. I don't know of another area throughout Sydney that is quite as diverse as what the Canterbury area is.
And good food. Look, great food.
Well, we get the benefit. There's food everywhere.
All right, round two takeaways.
Dynasty Chinese restaurant. I can recommend it.
About round two takeaways.
Yeah.
All we're doing is talking about
mention
food.
my name.
Yeah, 10%. 6 tackles with Gus, you get a 10% discount. What did you say? The pork chops, pork cutlets.
Pork chops with plum sauce. Oh, beautiful onions.
I'm hungry.
So nice.
Round two takeaways. Most impressive team?
In round two, Sea Eagle.
Gee, they're good.
So when I say impressive, because of the improvement from last season. Look, Luke Brooks has obviously made a difference. Everyone fit and well makes a difference. Tom Trbojevic back fit and well makes a massive difference, and he was exceptional on the weekend. There were some other really good performances, but that Manly are the ones at the moment that have caught my attention.
Can I make an unsolicited comment? You may. I think he's the best player in the world.
Well, a couple of years ago, I made a statement either on this podcast or 100% Footy. I said he is the greatest influencer of the scoreboard in the game at the time. He was the one that influenced scoring the most. And even watching him on the weekend, I made the comment during commentary. He is constantly at you. He doesn't come and get the ball unless he's trying to punish you with something. He never. There's never a downtime. There's never just a run for the sake of a run. He is constantly looking for a way through or to put someone else through. He's at you all the time. He's frightening. I was talking to him before the game. He's such a big boy, and he's hard as a rock. Like I think his body hopefully is now matured to the point where a lot of those niggly things are behind him. He's had a couple of injuries, you couldn't avoid from things like shoulders and that, but it appears that all the muscle, all the growing pains, all the things that he's gone through, hopefully are well behind him, and we get to see a really good passage of football for him, because it could well be the Tom Trbojevic era that we're entering into.
For the sake of the game, I hope he stays fit. Is he the most impressive player, or there were a few great individual efforts round two.
Phenomenal. I thought right from the first game, Reece Walsh stamped himself again. With Reece Walsh, and when he gets the ball, both coaches hold their breath. You're just not quite sure. And he's going to have some mistakes in him. He really is. But he's exceptional. He's absolutely brilliant. And so confident for one that's still in the early stages of his career. I thought there were some really good performances across the board from a lot of teams. Panthers bounced back to form. I thought Parramatta were very courageous.
Hammer was unreal.
Yeah.
Speed, baby.
Yeah, well, Dolphins, crikey. That was a real turnaround, wasn't it?
Who's going to improve this week?
Early in the season, you get this up and down everywhere. You really do. Now we've got teams coming off buys too. Now, that was a great record at the early part of last year as well. So, you really can't read form into it.
No.
It's kind of like, they say in the first 6 weeks, everyone wins one and everyone loses one. We're going to see upsets. We're going to see turnarounds. We're going to see, bounce backs and all sorts of things. And we might see one team that goes through undefeated, and we might see one team that goes through and doesn't win one. But there's not much between them all in certain pockets. I think the top 3 or 4 teams, and then you've got your middle 7 or 8 teams, and then you've got your bottom 3 or 4 teams. They're kind of all even in their own little pocket, and it'll just come down to who's got the players on the field and gets it right on the day and has a little bit of luck, or doesn't get bad luck more than anything. But, yeah.
So if you're in a tipping comp, don't worry so much about what happened last week.
No.
Judge every game on its merits.
Exactly. You're going to get upsets. You're going to get bounce backs. It's as simple as that. I think we're all sort of thinking there might be a big bounce back from one team this week, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Let's find out who that might be, eh?
Yes!
No.
Hey.
No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
I don't think it's the West Tigers. Actually, I'll ask the question first. The Benji criticism after game 1 is peak rugby league.
Yes!
What is all this crap
Doesn't
about?
rugby league go on with some rubbish?
Oh, mate.
Doesn't it go on with some rubbish, rugby league?
I
And sticks its head in where it shouldn't be a lot of the time.
People texting the radio station on Saturday going he should be sacked.
Who?
Benji Marshall.
Oh, please.
I'm like, is this happening?
Please. First of all, Tigers were not expected to win that game on the weekend. I don't think I can imagine. I don't know how many tipsters there are in the world for rugby league. I doubt anyone tipped West Tigers to be beating Canberra on the weekend. No, look, I said it on 100% Footy the other night. It takes you a good 4 or 5 years in the role of head coach to really learn what sort of head coach you're going to be. If you're going to be a long term, if you're going to be a person what they call career, I don't know what that means, but if you're going to have a long career in rugby league as a head coach, it takes you 4 or 5 years to find out what sort of coach you are, or how you want to run it, or how the best way for you to do it, how to delegate staff, how to recruit staff, how to organise your time, how to organise your relationships with players, with staff, with board of directors, with sponsors, with members. There's a whole group of things there that you've got to be contending with all the time. Benji is in the very embryo stage, and he's taken it on without a great deal of grounding in the game other than playing the game. He hasn't had a great deal of coaching grounding in the game, but I'm an unabashed Benji Marshall admirer. I was all his playing career. And I can't imagine that he hasn't got great knowledge of the game. In fact, I know he does because I've spoken to him about rugby league. He's very astute. You underestimate him at your peril because he is very smart about the game. And eventually he'll get into his rhythm as a coach, and eventually he'll mould a team in his own likeness. And right at the moment, he's got a lot of young blokes that have probably been thrust into first grade before their time, before they're 100% ready. They're still working on their roster. It's going to be developed over a number of years, and Benji will develop along with them. But writing a coach off after one game is just that. Rugby league just does this. It must be they haven't got anything else to talk about, or they don't know enough about anything to. That's the cheapest way to comment. I just don't get it.
And the stuff about him not working hard enough. How do they know that he doesn't go home and sit at his computer for 4 hours doing video? Like, what a load of bollocks.
Rubbish.
God, we come up with some garbage.
Trust me, if you're an NRL head coach, there is no downtime.
No.
There is no downtime. All right? There is no downtime. It's on your mind 24/7. So whoever coined that phrase was just making it up.
Even retired coaches.
Even retired coaches.
Do you think Jahrome Hughes deserved a suspension is the question?
No. No, I don't think so. We went through a spate of this years ago where players were getting their hands either accidentally or whatever on referees. Some had their hand on them when they were talking to them. You know, like it was. Yeah. We went through a whole range of things, and the guidelines were put in place that you just can't touch the referee, and you shouldn't ever touch the referee. It's as simple as that. There are times, and there are plenty of times during a game where the referee will be in your way. That's part of the game. That's part of the goalpost gets in your way at times. You know where it is, but it still gets in your way. This just happens. Your own teammates get in your way. Opposition players get in your way. It's not obstruction. It's just the bumps that we have in rugby league and all the time. And there will be times where you'll bump into a referee and you quickly say sorry, and he says no worries, and you move on. That doesn't matter.
That's right.
Then every now and then you'll get one like this where Jahrome Hughes was defending his line in a position like that, and the referee was right alongside of him and was kind of like, where's this bloke going to run? And he kind of thought, you're going to get hurt if you're going to stand there. And that's pretty much what it was. That was pretty much what it was. Now, as a reminder, everyone, give him a fine, whatever. Yeah. But I don't think he deserves to be missing. It wasn't a malicious, that's not a suspendable offence for mine. No. Now, the one in the Canterbury game where the try was disallowed, and the league have since admitted that it should have been a try. Of course, it should have been a try. Braden Trindle runs behind the referee to get to a point in defence, then realised the player's been switched. He knows exactly where the referee is, and uses the referee as an obstruction to try and draw a penalty, which he ended up succeeding in doing. But again, he hasn't been fined, I don't think, for touching the referee. And it was no more obvious than what the Jahrome Hughes one was. I think Jahrome Hughes saved the referee from a potential collision.
Well, that's what I wanted to point out to you, and I sent a tweet to this effect, and I'm not trying to ref blame, but the refs are in the wrong spot. Like,
no. Don't be going. No,
but
it's going to happen, mate.
Of course it will. But
it's going to happen.
If you're in the defensive line when they're right on the goal line, then invariably you're going to get.
And some of them retreat back into the in goal to get out of your way. Yeah. But even in the 10 metres during the play, sometimes, where the ball is played on the field, laterally across the field, where the ball is played. You then organise your defence. Yeah. How many players are going to be on the short side of the field? How many people are going to be on the long side of the field? When it's in the middle of the field, how many people are going to have each side? Which way your markers are going to work? And sometimes the referee in marking the 10 metres, right, not that he knows, when he gets back in the line and marks the 10 metres, he's standing right where you want to stand. Right where you want to stand. And you've got to decide whether I stand inside him and shorten our line or stand outside him and maybe expose us a little bit on the inside, because that metre or two can make a lot of difference. So quite often you'll just say to the referee, can you just move? Or, I've just, you'll bump into him. And that happens a lot. Yeah. Happens a lot. Talk to any NRL player. Sometimes the referee is standing exactly where you need to stand, all right? And they do a really good job. The referees get themselves out of the way of that. But every now and then it's going to come your way. To me, the only time that the referee interferes is if the ball actually hits him. If they kick it at him and then the ball gets deflected, and then that changes the course of the game. But players running into referees inadvertently during that, it's going to happen. You can't take that out of the game. So I'm not blaming the referees for it. The experienced ones do it less. The inexperienced ones a little bit more.
That's true.
They're the ones. Now that we've got the girls refereeing, the women refereeing in the men's game as well, I'm scared of the potential huge collision if something did go wrong. We saw a terrible one years ago where Tony Carroll kneed a referee in the head who fell over in front.
I think it was Ziggy Presleska, wasn't it? Who was the ref on?
No,
Friday?
it wasn't him. No, it wasn't him. No.
Who was it?
No, using it. Tony Delahaye.
Oh, Tony Dellis Harris.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Knocked him out.
Mate, yep.
But we had 2 referees on the field at that time, so you were double the chance of it happening.
HIA.
No, but the referee's pretty good. On touchwood, none of the girls ever get involved in a big collision. But
well, I suppose the ones that we've seen, they're very close to the goal line, and what they sort of have to think about getting out of the way.
It's
to
nothing.
retreat.
The ones that you would look at is if a player ran up behind a referee and grabbed him by the arm and said, "Hey, you," like those sort of ones.
Stop penalising us.
Well, what do you think?
Yeah, of course.
During the course of play, I think they're all accidental or incidental. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but if he comes up,
but if you come and grab a referee, if you do a block of roach and pat him on the head to demean him, that's different.
How many weeks Blocker get now, you reckon?
Blocker wouldn't have played too many games.
The Blocker would never not be suspended.
Blocker wouldn't have played too many games in
Bat him on the
year.
head, my God. You like the Broncos not talking about last year's grand final?
No. What's that? Not talking about it.
Well, I suppose Adam Reynolds isn't there, so it's a grand final in...
Not talking about it? What's that about?
I guess ahead of this week's grand final rematch, they're ignoring it.
Have they got scars? Is it some sort of mental health issue or something?
I imagine they probably do, yeah.
Eh?
I imagine they probably do have some scarring.
It's like a hoodoo. First thing about a hoodoo, don't talk about the hoodoo.
What did you do when you lost in 1990?
Yeah.
Like you would have run into Canberra during the year. Did you talk about it?
Yeah, bloody oath.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how would you use that? How would you use that as a catalyst, if you will?
Oh, it all goes around to the by the time you've played each other in a grand final, you know each other pretty well. And you're looking at not only what happened, but what could have potentially happened, what they might be thinking as a variation or as a difference, or where we were poor on the day that we can fix up. And poor on I don't understand that. Not talking about it as though that's going to solve your issues.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. Did they actually say that, or is that another media beat-up?
Probably. It's a beat-up on this podcast anyhow.
Yeah. You media blokes have got a lot to answer for, I'm telling you.
Last one. The Rabbits, I made this one up. The Rabbits should sit in the auditorium and listen to Russell Crowe recite them The Art of War.
Have you ever read The Art of War?
No, I haven't.
It's
but
very
I'm thinking
interesting.
about reading
It's very interesting. Very interesting. As a sideline to that, The Art of War, remember a player at the Bulldogs called Max Mannix?
Yeah.
Max Mannix? Max Mannix, I ran into him 5 or 6 years ago, and I didn't know he'd done this. I often wonder what happened to Max. Max Mannix was a winger that played for the Bulldogs and played first grade. Really good athlete. I think he was a pentathlete or a decathlete.
Right.
As an athlete. Really strong runner. He went off to Japan on a trip when his football career had ended, and he ended up staying for an extended period of time. What he actually learned a living teaching English to Japanese students. You could actually go and sit in a cafe with them, and they would pay you to talk English to them and learn how to talk. As a result, he learned Japanese.
We need to get that job.
Yeah, it's a good job, isn't it?
What a good job. We could just sit there and talk to each other and get paid.
Yeah, outside of football, I don't know much English at all. Anyway, he was telling me the story. I never knew this had happened. He was telling me the story that he was sitting in his apartment or wherever it was one night, and he was watching the equivalent of the Asian Academy Awards, the equivalent of the movie awards over there in Asia.
Mm.
And he was thinking about it, and he thought, well, how hard would it be to direct a movie, to write a screenplay? I don't know why, and he doesn't know why he thought that. And he thought, I wonder whether that would be hard. And he actually went and toured one of the movie lots across there, and he came home and he picked up the book, The Art of War, right? The famous book.
Mm.
and started to read it. And then he started to write down a screenplay, what it would look like as a movie. He went on to win a number of Academy Awards himself as one of Asia's...
Are you making this up?
No, one of Asia's biggest movie directors. Or
So he did it. It was in an Asian language.
Yeah.
So the Asian Academy Award, you mean?
Yeah, I think I've got that right.
This sounds like a G-up.
True.
The former Bulldogs winger.
I think he lives half of the year at the Gold Coast and half of the year in Japan. But he's made any number of award-winning movies in that part of the world. And it started, I believe, I've got the story right, with The Art of War. The Art of War is a great book. A lot of good little sayings in there and a lot of little notions. I read it many years ago.
What's the premise of The Art of War? It's about...
The Art of War. It's The Art of War.
But it's about... Like there's the number of different methods you can use, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's like an instructional book.
Yeah. Feign weakness when you're strong. Feign strength when you're weak.
Max Mannix, Rugby League.
Yeah, Max Mannix.
I have to do more research on that.
Look it up. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because and it started off with him.
That's an unbelievable story.
It started off when he was over there. I don't know when he went there on a holiday or went there on work experience or something, but he was actually getting employed daily to sit in coffee shops and talk to Japanese university students who wanted to learn
Rugby League.
Who wanted to learn English. He said you just sit there and talk to them, and then you learn Japanese. And he sat down, saw the movie awards in Asia, opened up the book The Art of War.
Of all the books.
Right, which was sporting, there was a sporting connotation to all of it, and somehow sat down and wrote this screenplay. Started off with the sun rises over, and off he went.
How about
what the scenes would look like. Got someone to fund it, and won the equivalent. I think he won a number of awards over there.
That's incredible.
He's one of Asia's biggest.
That's a great story.
Well, he's told me a porky pie. I don't know.
He's geeing you up.
No,
but anyway,
I think it's pretty right.
Within the pages of The Art of War, there must surely be something dedicated to the art of the ambush.
Yeah,
Gus.
I mean, Russell Crowe could read you the phone book and it would fire you up if he read it in, the gladiator's voice.
So how would The Art of War interpret Latrell's drama? And they've sacked the halfback,
Well,
and they've been hammered by the media,
Yeah.
and then they've got the saviour coming in, Jack Whiten.
Yeah, there'll be a lesson in there for everyone. Absolutely.
You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah. What are you predicting, an ambush?
They're coming.
Well,
They're coming south.
let me just stop you right there.
Yeah.
All right? There's no ambush in the local derby
That's
between
true.
Rooster and Rabbit.
You see it
But
coming.
it's impossible to have an ambush in that circumstance, regardless of how the two teams are going. They'll know exactly where they're coming from each other there. And Rabbit has got a chance. They've got a real chance of bouncing back. Look, I can't understand what's happened there at the moment or what all the talk is about. I suppose we've got to make media out of something. But, they've played Manly in Las Vegas. Manly look like the form team at the moment. And they've played the Broncos, last year's grand finalist, in Brisbane. I mean, what do they jump? Why is everyone losing their,
They were actually in it for a chunk of that game, weren't they?
Well, yeah, they came out after half time and shocked the Broncos and got back in it. I don't get it, and they've made a pretty drastic team change, which we might talk about a little bit later. But and what people are saying, is that a sign of panic? Is it a sign of trouble? Well, it might not be. It might not be. They had a pretty poor end of the season last year. Maybe they trained all off-season and said, well, we'll give the incumbents a couple of weeks to see whether or not they can turn it around, and they've been a bit unhappy with the result. That's nothing against Lachlan Ilias. I think Lachlan Ilias is a victim in this. I think he's a victim of the way the Brabbados are playing and how they're struggling. And for a halfback, it's just not his fault that things aren't functioning. But during the off-season, they've obviously trained with the other boy, Dean Hawkins, at halfback at some stage of the year. He was the reserve grade player of the year last year.
I think he's been a reserve grade player of the year twice, actually.
Yeah, they did win the competition last year, the New South Wales Cup. He's 24 years of age. He's quite a handy player. And maybe they're just looking for something a little different, a little bit more control or a little bit whatever else he has. Lachlan Ilias is an NRL halfback every day of the week and still very much in the embryo stage of his career. So I don't see it as panic. There is obviously a lot of noise around Latrell, and that happens all the time. South Sydney, they get a lot of clicks on media websites. If you write a column about South Sydney, you get a lot of readers.
Do you know what else?
You notice that?
whenever there's a story with your head attached to it, they get a lot of clicks as well.
Even if it's not about me.
I've noticed I see your head a lot.
Eh?
I see your head a lot.
I don't read newspapers, so I don't know.
I like their pack this week, South. So they've changed. Jacob Host has come back in, and they've been struggling with edge players. But Totola, Cook, Moale, he's a good player, Moale, young kid. He's only still 20, I reckon. Kalao Matangi, Host, Murray. And then they've moved Kepi to the bench, so Kepi Burgess to come off the bench.
I wouldn't be
solid.
writing them off at all. And I'll tell you who's not writing them off this week. Rooster. They are not writing them off at all. And that's why there'll be no ambush. I'm not saying South can't win, but there'll be no ambush. They won't shock the Rooster. Rooster will be ready, mate.
Gee, they need a Latrell and the Latrell special. Against his old club, he won 2 comps for the Roosters. He's got a fire.
It's not as though, like, he's had some really good moments in rounds 1 and 2 too. You know, he's had some really good moments, but probably need more of it.
So on the halfback thing, I wanted to bring that up. Pretty amazing. First 2 rounds of the competition, we've had 3 clubs drop their halfback. Now, that's, as you already have touched on, that's a very dramatic move on the face of it. So Sullivan was dropped after 1 game at the Dolphins. They hit back and won. Jackson Hastings has been dropped this week as well, along with Lachlan Ilias. Is that as dramatic a change as we would think on the surface, or would all the replacements who have come in spend a lot of time throughout the off-season running in that position?
Always had the adage as a coach that if you were going to make a significant change like that, you had to believe you were going to win. Right? You had to believe that there was going to be an instant impact with it, right? Which is why take the Lachlan Ilias thing, for example. He was halfback for pretty much all of last season. They had a disappointing end of the season. They go through pre-season training and they have what they call repetitions. They're running their plays, their patterns, their plays, their patterns, their plays. They go through their kick and catch. They go through all of the things that they're going to go through, all their skills and drills. And every halfback in the top 45 players is getting a go in that sequences and doing all that. And, maybe they got to the start of the year and thought, Dean Hawkins has really trained good. He looks the goods. He's actually trained a bit better than Lachlan. Lachlan's the incumbent. Maybe, all right, we'll keep the peace and we'll go with Lachlan straight away and see how it goes. And maybe they weren't too happy with it in the first 2 rounds, so they've decided to reward Dean Hawkins. In the case of the Newcastle Knights, Jackson Hastings with them last year. They had a very good run towards the finals at the back end of last year, but they did go out and recruit Jack Cogger. Jack Cogger played in a grand final winning team.
It looked like a matter of time before he came
into the halves somewhere. So is Cogger more like Gamble, or is he more like Hastings? So to keep the balance of your 7 and 6, they probably thought, well, someone's got to go with Gamble. We like his toughness, his resilience, and his effort areas and all that sort of thing, where the other 2 are sort of playmakers. And so if Cogger was going to come in, well, the most likely one to replace is Hastings, all right, because he handles that role a little bit better. Tyson Gamble's a different. He's an energy player. He's and who was the other one? Sean O'Sullivan.
Well, they came back and flogged him.
Yeah, well, Sean O'Sullivan's a very, very tidy player, and we saw him. He played the Jack Cogger role at the Panthers there for a year, replacing Nathan Cleary during games when he was injured or at Origin. But the boy Couture, he's going to be a long-termer. He's a really good kid, and I guess they were a bit disappointing in round 1, and they thought, well, they'll throw them in at home. I like to bring young fellas in when they're playing at home, not so much away from home, and he went really good. He's a potential long-termer, and I believe they've already made moves to try and extend his contract just on that performance on the weekend. But,
right.
I don't see it as signs of panic. I don't think coaches panic after 1 or 2 rounds or after 1 or 2 results. But, if you're going to replace a playmaker like that, that's such a significant change, it's been on your mind for some time. Yeah. So it's just a matter of what you finally wake up one morning and you say, today's the day. I'm going to do it today. That's the 24/7 nature of coaching. You go to sleep with it on your mind and you wake up and it's still on your mind. That's the decision. And sooner or later, you've got to bite the bullet and do it. And if you leave it another week or a week later, they've obviously decided Dean Hawkins, this is the time. Jack Cogger, we've got to get him into the team. Newcastle's lost their first 2, so they've decided to make the change. But I don't see it as a sign of panic.
So you've often talked about the maturing process of a half. He's 25, Dean Hawkins. He's only played 6 games, but he could have a long time in first grade if he gets this right. Like, this is a huge opportunity, not just at South, but anywhere.
Yeah. You look at the top halfbacks in the game today, all right? All those players that are over 32 years of age. You know, there's about 6 or 7 of our playmakers are all at the back end of their career. And go back and look at what they were doing between the ages of 20 and 24. All right? And some of them weren't even playing NRL. Some of them weren't even in first grade during those years. The maturation the maturing and developing of a halfback takes a long time. You get your whiz kids, but even the whiz kids who come in at very young ages then go through flat spots and go backwards for a while once they start to get targeted by opposition teams and people understand what all their tricks are. There are others that take a long time to get there and then a long time to you know, like, they're not... What they're doing today as senior players, they were not doing at 20 years of age. They weren't. The outlier is Nathan Cleary, who has just been on an upwards trajectory pretty much from the time he came in to NRL, and we don't really know how far that's going to go. But, you know, I think our halves are judged very unfairly. I think we're guilty of being very impatient with them. And I think you've got to understand that their peak years are going to be from 27 to 33, 34. That's going to be the peak years for your halfback. You get your whiz kids. Benji Marshall was a whiz kid. You know, they'll come in and they'll have immediate impact, but then they'll hit a flat spot as opposition teams start the game plan for them and understand what they're doing. Then you've got to learn your craft, how to bring the rest of your team to light, how to bring the best out of everyone else, how to control the game, how to control field position. It's a hard job.
All right.
Cooper Cronk. He
wasn't even a halfback.
He wasn't even a halfback. He was off the bench playing wing and hooker. Jonathan Thurston couldn't make an NRL team in his younger years. Too small, can't tackle.
Who was the other one I was just thinking of?
Cody Walker didn't play NRL till he was 25.
Yeah, I know. Well, Hawkins is the same as Hawkins, really.
Yeah. So, and Hawkins has had a few tastes. You know, he's played half a dozen games, so they've thrown him in there. But, you know, mentally, some of them aren't ready to do it until that age. It's, you know, the ones that do are exceptions. But Daly Cherry Evans, I don't think he debuted till he was 23 or something. He was...
Yeah, I think he might have just come out of the 20s. Munster was the one I was going to say. He was a fullback.
Yeah.
We'll have a look at this game from the Roosters' perspective a little later, but I just think that all the noise around Souths makes what was already a magnificent prospect even bigger.
See, the art of war, you've failed. You've already alerted them.
Yeah, but I'm not playing.
You've already alerted them.
I'm talking it up.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you're not. You see, you've let them know. You've ruined your ambush straight away.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe they don't listen.
No?
Maybe they don't listen to us.
Well, yeah, I'm suspecting you might have been going to have a wager on the bunnies.
I'm not. No, I won't be betting in that game.
Won't you?
No. Although there's a couple of good odds this weekend. Askgus, after the Coates' acrobatic effort, to say the very least, is there another moment you remember in commentary or as a player coach that made you go, wow? Whether it was a try, there's a few wows in Gus's career, whether there was a try on the buzzer to win the game or something else.
There are dozens of them.
A miracle try?
I didn't say wow with that one.
No.
I didn't say wow with the miracle try. 1994,
no.
Mark Coyne in the corner. And years later, as luck would have it, Mark Coyne ended up my neighbour.
I know.
Can you believe that?
You were in the were you calling the Thurston game? You know, the Rugby League gods, all that stuff that you talk about?
Yeah,
the grand final?
Yeah.
That's a wow.
That was a wow.
Try.
That
was a wow.
That was a wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all out of our seats.
Do you reckon that was, like, in terms of most breathtaking moments on a Rugby League field, I reckon that's got to be number one. But certainly in my time watching the game.
It immediately comes to mind.
Yeah.
It immediately comes to mind. And, you know, it's a lesson for everyone. Broncos were premiers. They were premiers with 30 seconds to go.
Incredible.
In the whole season. All that work, all that training, all those games.
Incredible.
79 and a half minutes, and you are premiers. You're in front on the last play of the game. And the last play of the game, it doesn't look like they know what they're doing. The ball's bouncing and picking it up and running across field and doing nothing. And just a moment of a lack of trust in the defensive line. And And Cole Phelps scores in the corner.
JT talks about that, actually. You know how he ran backwards? He actually says he deliberately went backwards because he needed a bit more time to think about what he was going to do.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think like that?
Well, that's a touch football thing.
That's
You'll
incredible.
see that in touch football a lot.
Yeah.
You often see playmakers that'll back away and go, okay, what are my options here? You know, and particularly with time running out and all that sort of thing, or if you need one to win. But
to have that clarity of thought in the last 10 seconds of a grand final.
Michael Morgan.
Felt in the corner.
Yeah, and ran a beautiful line that just threatened enough and, winger man came in and just left the wing open and down the sideline. It's just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I'm trying to think of some other wow moments.
There's
been
plenty of them.
Wows.
Yeah, I mean, plenty of wow moments. Absolutely.
I'll tell you what. This is such a good question, Sean, on Ask Gus.
But that was a big wow moment the other night. As you know, on this podcast last week, I tipped the Warriors. I thought the Warriors could win that game, and with 5 minutes to go, I'm thinking I've got this right.
Curling the mo.
Yeah, I've got this right. With 3 minutes to go, we've got this right. You know, this was a tremendous second half from the Warriors. In that period, the Warriors weren't that good in the first half. I was really disappointed with their first half. Got behind on the scoreboard, but the second half they showed me everything that I think of which they're capable. And they showed me in that period there that they're a contender. You know, in the right circumstances, they are a contender. What they did to Melbourne, no one could do. Penrith couldn't score a point against them the previous week. Warriors just ran roughshod over them and ran to an 8-point lead, and it was over. But in this modern-day game, there is nothing that can't happen in the space of a minute with time off and time off for kickoffs and time off for kicks and goals. You know, it's a long period, that last 3 or 4 minutes. And to think on the last play of the game, they could just run a play that they've been running all night to give Coates a chance, and he comes up with this miracle. Even when he dived, I thought they've got him. He's going to be into touch. And he was. His legs were in the grandstand. And he's reached back with those long levers and planted the ball down right in the corner. And as Craig Belly said after the game, it's no fluke because he practices it. They practice the grip. They practice where it's got to land. They levitate. They just hold themselves up there long enough, and then they really concentrate on the landing. But Dallin Watani scored one in the game very, very similar, where he just made beeline for the corner and times his run and his leap, knowing he's going to be pushed and his body's going to move sideways, but still gets his hand out in time to plant down there and get it in that little corner between the corner post. It's phenomenal.
It
was a magic wow moment.
I reckon they're the two best, Coates and Dallin, with those. But mind you, the Cronulla boys they're all good, but Young's all right. There's no shortage.
Nofaluma come up with an incredible one night. The Morris boys used to be brilliant at it. Corey Oates has had some incredible ones. They're all getting so good at it, and they've got the ability to practice it more and more now. Anyway,
what a change in the game to get rid of the corner post.
Yeah,
strike a genius.
Yeah. Well, that was Andrew Voss. We had a show called the Sunday Roast, and we ran a campaign about mainly because the corner posts, when they stand there, they're never standing upright. Some were leaning infield, some were leaning outfield. Like we see tries scored in the corner, someone would touch the corner post, but it was leaning in by 18 inches because someone had knocked it over before and someone hadn't put it up straight.
And half the time they didn't even put it back when you knocked it over.
Exactly. So what did it actually mean?
Nothing.
What did it mean? Nothing. It didn't mean anything. So what it opened up by taking away that as part of the in goal for the body, not for the ball. If the ball hit it, it's the same thing. But we had any number of examples, and Voss used to play it every Sunday, of corner posts that were just laying on the ground, laying over here, laying over there, laying in field. You know, I used to tell our wingers, pull the corner post towards you when you line up in defence. It gives you an extra half a metre of sideline.
You're a sneaky coach, you are.
Well, you would. Your wingers, I can now move 3 metres in from touch because I've got to meet it and the corner post is going to save that.
That's like kicking your golf ball out of the rough.
No, it's not.
Should you have a corner post on the 20-metre line for 40-20s?
Well, when we brought the rule in, so the 40-20 rule we introduced when the two competitions divided.
Yeah.
I wrote an article about the 40-20 rule, I think back in about 1990, that I said that good kickers who kick downfield and find touch should be rewarded. We need more attacking play at the attacking end of the field rather than just a scrum, you get the ball and come back the other way. If you could actually affect a kick that from your own inside your own 40 that found touch inside their 20, you should be rewarded with the ball back, or at least the feed in the scrum or whatever it was. And it sort of set, the idea got, everyone's, making it up again. So, it sort of just got led in the ear. So then when the two competitions split, we introduced it into the ARL version of the competition. Super League went off and played its version of the competition. We had ours, but because we now had competing competitions, we were looking for a few things in our competition to be.
I thought the 40-20 was a Super League thing.
No, it was ours.
Was it?
ARL.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, Bob Fulton and I were on the rules committee for the ARL.
Oh,
We're
there
looking
you
at
go.
different ways to do it. So then when the two codes came back together, we had to sit on a committee with a couple of the Super League coaches because they had different rules and interpretations and different things, and we had to get it all sort of semblance. And we adopted the 40-20 rule. They didn't want it, but when we explained how it opened up attacking opportunities, wingers had to drop back early, they kind of got what it was, and it's been a great rule.
It's been a great rule.
And I think it should be 50-10, 40-20, 30-30.
Oh, okay.
If you can make that amount of distance in the kick, it shouldn't just be 40-20, but they didn't want to do that. But one thing I did say at the time, we need a corner post. How would you know if it's, how's the linesman going to tell if it's gone across? What if it goes across the junction? I said, put a corner post on it. And they couldn't do it. Mick Stone was the referee's boss at the time, and he couldn't get his head around it because the corner post in the corner was part of the outline. So if you touched it, you were out. If we put it on the 40-20, the ball mightn't be out, but it might touch that. He had this thing that he didn't want to put a post on that 40-20 line to determine whether it went either side. And I said, well, just put it fractionally outside the field of play.
Yeah.
We had a big argument about it. And in the end, they said, no, they wouldn't put one there. And I think we should have one there. Right? It shouldn't be part of the out. It just should be there as a guide to whether or not the ball went left or right of the 40-20 line. Because sometimes the old mate, the linesman, he's miles back.
How do you tell? Like, you're just
Particularly
guessing, aren't you?
Well, you kick it on tackle 2 or 3. He's guessing. And
He's sprinting.
The ball sometimes does go right over the junction.
Yeah.
And he'll come down and the crowd goes, oh, will he or won't he? Then they go and they try and get the video referee and old bunker mate, he's having a look. And, they should have a corner post on the 20-metre line. Of course they should.
Very good. I love it when
How'd we get into that?
I love it when we're random on this. Binksy with one of the big questions. In your opinion, who's the greatest player to never play rep football?
The greatest player never to play rep football.
What a tough question.
The greatest player to never play rep football.
Here we're going deep. The art of war?
To never play rep football. Oh,
Well, let's take city country out of it, okay? So we'll say Origin Australia or New Zealand or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you want to take that question on notice?
Yeah, I'll go and think about that.
Sorry, that's what I was going to say too. Sean's question about the acrobatic efforts, wow moments. Why don't you submit your biggest wow moments, and we'll talk about them next week on Askgus.
Okay.
The biggest wow moments in rugby league that you can remember, or your favourites, and we'll go through some of them next week.
Royce Simmons scoring his second try was a wow moment.
It certainly was if you were coaching him. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Peter. Gus is going to take that one on notice, Binksy. The current Panthers era is great. The Storm Premiership era was great. The Eels in the early 80s were great, and so on. Who's the greatest team era that never won a premiership?
The greatest team era that never won a premiership.
So I suppose what he's saying is teams that dominated a period but never won one. So for Peter, he says, for me, it's the Eels of around 2000.
Yeah, Eels had a couple of chances. They had the competition at their mercy. In 2000, which was the one where Newcastle beat them. 2001. They were the best team in the competition by a million miles. They just got beaten by a champion halfback on the day who handled the occasion far better. But I think they broke all point scoring records in that year. They were phenomenal as a team.
Yep.
Coach Brian Smith, who I always rated as a really good coach, went to a number of grand finals and never won one. But that's an individual. Great teams that never won one. I think the North Sydney Bears were a team for me in the mid to late 90s that were a really good side but never got there. They never got to a grand final, and they were good enough. They had a really good side, and they could beat all the top teams of the day, but just couldn't get it done in September. I think that they were a really good side that never saw that. There were some Dragons teams in the early 2000s I rated as really highly, and they couldn't get there. They sort of spilled their lollies come September.
The Brisbane beat them twice in grand finals in the early 90s.
Yeah. But even in the early 2000s, I thought they had a really good side. half a dozen of their players in my Origin teams.
Oh, that was the 99 grand final that you
99 grand
beaten
final.
by Melbourne. That was a good side.
Well, they had 3 weeks earlier, they'd played Melbourne in Melbourne and beat them by 40.
Are they really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and they did lead 16-0 in that.
I know.
Like, it was over.
That was a wow moment. Bill Harrigan with a high penalty try.
Yeah.
Right call.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Field goals are wow. Some field goals are wow. Well, Nathan Cleary with the 2-point field goal that night to level the score for Panthers after the bell.
Ben Moses kicked one in Golden Point, didn't he?
Then Moses kicked one.
Remember the Latrell field goal down in Melbourne a couple of years ago?
Wow moment.
Wow.
Sean Timmins in the Origin. Wow moment.
Short teams in the Origin.
Break the deadlock. 9-8.
Oh, Braith's field goal.
Braith and Astor's
At
field goal.
Roosters versus
Yeah, the ball went all
West
around the
Tigers.
throw back. Yeah. Wow moment.
Yeah. Oh, Benji's pass to Pat Richards.
Wow moment. Now you're giving all the answers.
I'm
though.
glad we talked about this.
They're all wow moments.
Yeah.
I get a wow out of a big hit or a big run
Not allowed to do that anymore.
or a bunker decision. Sometimes I just go, wow.
But there's different wows. There's different contexts of wow.
How did he get that? Wow.
Millie asks, I wonder if it's Millie Elliott, Millie Boyle.
Mm-hmm.
She's changed. She's gone with Adam's name. Who's the best halves pairing in the NRL?
Cleary and Luai.
Okay.
Cleary and Luai. I'm really keen to see how Cherry Evans and Brooks develops
Oh,
as the year goes on. I think they can be formidable. Reynolds and Ezra Mann obviously has. I mean, Reynolds is, I said earlier in this year, they're going to have to win it this year, I think. He's a little bit plagued with injury at the moment, the old bloke.
he's a superstar in the making, Ezra Mann, if he's not already.
Oh, absolutely.
What a player.
Yeah. So he and Reece Walsh might end up the halves pairing for them for a decade.
Mm.
Cobbo could end up the fullback.
Is that what you see evolving there? Is that what you think?
Sometimes I think about that, yeah.
Mm.
In my quietest moments, I think about all sorts of things.
So Reece plays like a 5'8", so you'd take...
Well, Lockyer made that transition.
Interesting.
Mm.
Be a headline into that. Blake asks...
Moses and Dylan Brown's a very good halves combination.
Mm. There's another one, they haven't been able to get it done, though.
When Jahrome Hughes gets to the Tigers and plays with that other young fella,
Galvin.
Lachlan Galvin, that could develop into a formidable team.
Mm. What about Hughes and Munster? Even though
Hughes
neither are
and
playing
Munster,
this week.
Terrific.
Okay. Blake asks if Zac Hosking will turn out to be the buy of the year.
Well, he started off with a bang, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they'll be very happy with what he's provided so far. Doing really well. But, he's another one that got an opportunity to play with the Panthers in that group and did a great job for them. And now he's moved on and got a contract with the Raiders. And I think they'll be very happy for him.
Unfortunately, Blake, buy of the year has already been determined by our man, Brooksy, who I notice still doesn't have the 6 tackles logo on his shorts.
No.
Brooksy is the buy of the year.
It goes to Cleary. Nathan Cleary. Wow! Cleary's done it all himself. This is the greatest team of the modern era.
It was one of the greatest ever grand finals. Now, the rematch we've all been waiting for.
We've got unfinished business.
Australia. It doesn't get bigger than this.
Grand final rematch. Let's go.
Blockbuster Thursday night footy on 9 and 9 now.
Daly Cherry Evans, he's kicked field goals off right and left foot.
Mm-hmm.
He's kicked 27 now. 2 5/8 are tied for second on 26 career field goals.
Yep.
Whom are they?
That's Jamie Soward
Yep.
and James Maloney.
Well done.
Yeah. But they're nowhere near the most prolific field goal kickers in history.
Eric Sims.
Yeah, they've kicked 27, 26. Eric Sims kicked 80-odd. I think
that right?
84, 85. Who was number 2 in the game, history? It'll shock you.
Be a forward, wouldn't it? No.
Field goals, forwards.
Well, I'm just thinking back in the old days. No, I don't know. Who?
Bob Fulton.
Is that right?
Mm.
Wow. So they were worth...
Oh, with 2 points back
2.
then. Eric Sims was the reason why they changed it to a 1-point field goal.
So how many would he kick in a game?
Oh, I don't know what the record was, but I can remember him kicking 3 or 4
Wow.
in a field goal. 1-point field goal. I played in a game down at Canberra when I was playing for South in 86. Neil Baker was a prolific field goal kicker. He loved field goals, and Craig Coleman used to kick a few. We won a game 8-4, and I think we kicked 4 field goals. I can't remember. 1-pointers.
Really?
We beat Mal Meninga's Canberra side down there.
Kick 4 1-point field goals.
I might have been concussed, I don't know, but I've got a distinct memory of him kicking a few.
Well, my favourite one, the very famous one, Terry Lamb must have thought they were still worth 2 because he kicked the field goal and I was 2 behind.
Or 2 behind.
What was he doing? Did Greg Inglis do that too?
The late Kenny Wilson did that at Henson Park. Kenny Wilson was blind as a bat. We're at Henson Park there up the southern end, and the opposition scored and kicked the goal, and he said, just get this kick back and get back to me so I'll kick a field goal, we'll win this. And no one said anything because Kenny was the captain, you know. And we've gone off to kick off and I'm standing alongside him. I said, mate, we're 4 behind.
4 behind?
He said, what? And he looked up at the scoreboard. He said, chase this anyway. He said,
4 behind?
he thought we were level on the scoreboard.
That's too funny.
He couldn't see his hand in front of his face.
How could he play rugby league and be blind as a bat?
Blind as a bat.
How did he play?
Blind as a bat. Champion bloke. He passed away last
4
year.
behind.
He was just about to kick off, and I had to tell him. I said, Kenny, he said, just get me up there, get me in position, I'll kick the field goal, we'll win this. I got up and I said, mate, 4 behind. He said, what? He looked up at the scoreboard. Oh, why didn't you say something?
Gus, this Jack, the personal trainer on maths.
Yeah.
Mate, like there's got to be an intervention.
He's having a lend of everyone. I told you those 2 would get sucked in. She's been sucked in.
He's taken her back big time.
Yeah, and the other guy, he's been sucked in. He's as gullible as all hell.
Yeah, like, what about Jack saying, you're going to, like, you can move here, but if you want to do a long-distance relationship, I'm not coming to see you.
No, I'm sitting there. I said, don't listen to this.
She's just got to go, she's got to palm him off like GI.
Yeah. No.
What's he playing
and the other
bloke?
That girl's got that other bloke hooked in. I told you to go back to her.
I know.
Like, really?
I've actually got. I saw Sarah.
I think they do it just to rile us up.
Yeah.
No, I told you that.
She does not want a bar. Sarah does not want a bar of him.
I could read it like a race form. Read it like a race form.
So on the dinner party tonight, where they get Falls Estate School, there's big drama because she I'm not the promo I saw. What's Jack's partner's name? I can't remember.
Well, Tori.
She says, I'm developing. I think I'm falling in love with him, and they all blow up at her. They all blow up.
That was the outtake at the end of the show last night.
That's the promo for tonight.
Yeah, she said, I think he's really into me. And I said, that'll do me.
Please.
That'll do me. Fair dinkum. People can be dumb.
Maths.
I thought footballers were dumb.
No. We should get some ex-footballers on maths.
No, we don't want that.
Okay.
No.
Yes. So dinner party on maths tonight. Gus and I will be watching intently.
You know, field goals, I can remember a bloke, Phil Hawthorne kicked a lot of field goals. Remember the rugby confident?
Yep.
He kicked a lot of field goals in rugby league, but I don't know if it's still a rule today. You know how you can have a penalty shot for goal? Do you know that you can drop kick it? You don't have to put it on a mound and kick it?
I do know that you could do that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you still...
Who was Phil Hawthorne playing with? St George? Playing 5 over St George. I remember him at the cricket ground. The goal kicker had missed about 3 in a row, and they got a penalty not far out in front of the post. He came in and grabbed it and just drop kicked it for the penalty goal.
I wonder if you can still do that.
I think you can. It would save a lot of time. But, you know.
But you wouldn't be as accurate.
Well, the way they are today, they would.
Mm.
You watch them at training, they never miss. You watch them practice at training, they don't miss. The only thing that gets them in a game is the situation, the speed of it, players running at you. But no, they're very good. Look at the line dropouts now, how accurate they are with the high drop kick and all that.
Yeah.
Like the troll kicks them, they nearly go over the goalpost.
You know, the other one, I remember in the mid-90s, do you remember Matthew Ridge, for some reason, took to place kicking for touch?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
We did that back in the day.
Why did you do that?
Because it was more accurate and you could actually make more ground.
With a place kick?
Yeah, with the leather ball, yeah.
Wow.
Because the leather ball was it could bend out of shape and it had a fat end and a skinny end, and sometimes you'd torpedo it and it'd fly off the side of your boot, and we never kicked those like the end over end kicks like we do, the drop punt like we do today. No one drop punted, everyone torpedoed the ball.
Yeah.
But you didn't want to not kick it out, so you wouldn't aim. And what you do would have like kick for touch, and they'd find 10 yards, but the ball would go 60 yards over the try line, over the sideline. So I think Jack Gibson did it once.
Right.
And so what they did was they just got a little bit of mound and he put it on a mound and then they told you couldn't have a mound. Someone had to hold the ball up. You couldn't bring a plastic tee on to do it.
The finger on the ball.
Put the finger on the ball and do that.
Oh, what a great game. Speaking of great games, grand final rematch. Now, Panthers, massive favourites. Massive favourites. Payne Haas is going to play, but no James Fisher-Harris. Obviously Reynolds is out.
I thought I read that Payne Haas has now been eliminated.
I read yesterday he was in.
I think I read
has
this
that
morning
changed
that he's
subsequently,
out.
has it? Right. Let me just double check here.
It was only on social media, so I don't
Must
know
be
whether
true.
to trust it.
Payne Haas. Oh, he's out. Right, that was an hour ago. Okay. Well, now I kind of
I was
understand.
doing some research before I come on
Good
the
on you.
podcast.
Yeah. Well, look, let's look at this at face value. Haas is out, but Fisher-Harris is out. So there's like for like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with Reynolds out, you can understand that, but
Reynolds
should
is
they
a
be?
big loss.
But should they be like massive outsiders? Massive outsiders? Like we're talking $4.
Yeah. Well, I think if you played this 10 times, I think Panther wins 9 times. That's how heavily favoured I think they are.
Fair enough. And they'll win again. Well, they'll win for real Thursday night.
They'll win this. Yep.
So taking Reynolds out is a massive blow to their attacking game. How many points do you see Penrith conceding? How many tries can Brisbane score without him?
Probably. Well, you've still got Reece Walsh. They can score a couple.
Yep.
I think it'll be very similar to the Parramatta game the other night. I think they'll win 20-something to 12 or 14 or something like that.
Okay. Thursday night footy.
5 tries to 2.
Okay.
I think it'll be.
They showed glimpses, Penrith, didn't they? They're sort of getting there. Thursday night footy, 7:30 live and free here on 9. 6 o'clock Friday over in New Zealand. Great game. Great game, this one. Warriors at home, heavily favoured against this plucky Canberra team who are 2 from 2, right up the top of the ladder, but have to make the trip over to New Zealand, and the Warriors, they really have to fire. So Wade Egan has been named to start. Chanel Harris-Tavita stays in the squad as backup. Pardon me. Canberra get Elliot Whitehead back, so Hosking to the bench, and Nick Kotrick's back because Seb Chris is out because of concussion. So, look, everyone's written Canberra off. Was there any sort of chance at making an impression on the season? They're 2 from 2.
They shocked everyone in Newcastle round 1. They won the game they were expected to win last week against the Tigers and did it professionally, had a little flat spot in the middle of the field. But I think the Warriors have been really good. I mean, narrowly down to the Sharks. And their performance in Melbourne the other night for the 35 minutes in the second half, they were as good as anything we can see in the competition. They really were. They were disappointing the first half, I thought. But 0 from 2 to start the competition is not reflective of their ability, and I think they'll knuckle down and get this right on Friday night.
All right.
In a 6 o'clock game.
Warrior to get off the mark. Allianz, 7:30 Friday. It's the 300th game for Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, who I think most people would acknowledge as the Roosters' second best ever front rower. If you put Arthur Beetson at number 1. There's a few changes actually for the Roosters. Obviously, Luke Keary, because of concussion, is out. Sandon Smith comes in, and we know he's a likely customer. He's got plenty of pace. Siwa Wong's been dropped. So Nat Butcher joins the starting team to allow Angus Crichton to come onto the bench for his first game of the year. And Connor Watson plays his first game since 2022. Good luck to him in an historic game for Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. Now, we know Dean Hawkins is in for Ilias. Jack Whiten's going to play in the centres alongside Isaiah Tass. Moale to start, Kepi to the bench, and Jacob Host comes into the team. He was out with injury. The art of war, baby.
Well, you've already tipped them off. You've tipped off your ambush. See, when you're strong, feign weakness. When you're weak, feign strength.
I don't even know what that means in relation to your tip.
You need to read The Art of War.
I do. Maybe I should watch Max Mannix's interpretation of it.
Yeah, you have to learn Japanese to understand it.
Are you jumping
if it comes with subtitles.
Are you jumping on the South Sydney bandwagon?
That's a good thing. I will try and search to see if I can find that movie on some platform.
I won't be able to understand it.
It's got to be on some website around the world somewhere. If you're listening, Max, give me a tingle. Send a link through or something. Yeah, interesting one for Rooster. They They weren't terrible on the weekend, but I was a little bit surprised. They looked a little flat to me. And it was either that or Manly were just really good. Sometimes you can only play as good as your opposition, and Manly kind of had them covered the whole way. Like, Roosters were never really out of it, but Manly just had them covered with everything that happened. And, Trebojevic and Cherry Evans probably the difference. New 5'8", he's a handy kid, but you've got two young halves. I just, it's. I think they're short enough in the market. I couldn't back them at that price, even though I think they'll win. And Rabbit with plenty to prove. Jack Whiten back in the team. I think Jack Whiten will give them a big lift, enthusiasm and leadership-wise. The forwards can do their job. Yeah, there's a real chance of an upset. There is a real chance, and it wouldn't be an upset. It's a local derby. Anyone can win. At the. I'd much rather be backing Rabbit at those odds than Rooster.
Okay.
I think the markets should be a little bit more even than that. I'm tipping Rooster narrowly, but with little confidence.
Could be a classic Friday night from Allianz.
It will be.
3 p.m, Belmore, baby. Bulldogs versus the Titans. Now, obviously a boutique ground, but very tribal. Belmore, how many people are you going to get flocking through the gates?
I think they've
multicultural round.
They've sold about 12,000 or 13,000.
That's excellent.
For 3 o'clock on a Saturday is okay. For an out-of-town team, Titans coming from out of town. Titans coming off the bye. Teams coming off the bye had a great record last year. Kieran Foran's back for them as well. Keanu Keeney at fullback. So they've got some big ins, and they'll be disappointed with their first up effort. So
You've been defending well, Canterbury. There's a bit of spirit there.
I'm very happy at the moment.
Good.
With Bulldog.
If you're happy, I'm happy.
With the whole club, I'm very happy.
You look happy. Very happy. This is another one. 5:30.
How do you explain Dragon?
Well, I don't know, but I'm tipping him this week.
To beat Cowboy?
Yep.
At Jubilee.
Full house. Full house Jubilee. Back home. First game in Sydney all year.
Well, I think Cowboy give you a chance. Their first half against Newcastle the other day was pretty.
That was a shocking first
plain,
half.
Wasn't it?
Did you watch the first half?
Yeah, it was pretty plain.
Was it?
Yeah. They got out of it.
Yeah, I know.
They won.
Just.
They're dangerous, but they were pretty plain. And you'd have to think there's going to be a bounce back from Dragon.
Can I just ask you this question too? So big blowout scorelines. I think you've talked about this before. When the game's lost and the scoreline blows out, should you pay too much attention to that? Like, does that make you think, the Dragons went terrible and they can't improve just because of the fact they got flogged by a big score?
No, it's a little bit more of a trait in the modern day game and the modern day player than it used to be. It would be something that I would really take to heart, 20 years ago.
Yeah. You
wouldn't like to see that. My thing was if you're going to get beaten by 1, don't get beaten by 2. If you're going to get beaten by 6, don't get beaten by 10. You play to the end. You play to the 80 minutes, and you get used to doing that because you're going to need it. There's going to be plenty of games that go down to the wire, and you're going to need that. So you never ever want to get short pulling up. It's the same with everything we do at training. Touch the line and cut the corner. Make your time. We penalise them if they don't because you've got to go to the nth degree every time. You've got to finish your run. You've got to finish your tackle. Everything's got to be quality. And the scoreboard should not reflect your intensity or your effort areas. It should not. But we see it more and more. The modern day player, the modern day team, that psychology's not there sometimes, And it's hard once they get behind on the scoreboard for them to stay gritty, to be grim when they don't, when the scoreboard says it's over. That's really hard sometimes. I cannot explain, other than the fact, and I said it straight after the game, Wayne Bennett's a genius. I've seen him do this his whole career. I've seen him do it time and time and time again. And you talk about ambush, there was your ambush. And Dragon just didn't see it coming. Dragon were very good in round 1 and a nice win in the first game of the season. But the minute you sit and rest on your laurels, this game has a way of come back and punishing you, and it did in a big way. How the score got out to that, I'll never know. But when you've got speed and confidence in the opposition team, as the Dolphin did, they just ran up a big number on them. Now, is that relevant for this week's game? No.
No.
It'll be more relevant if Cowboys get 20 in front with, 25 to play. Will Dragon handle that period any differently? But so far as the game starts at 0-0 this week, you don't get any credit for what happened or any penalty for what happened last week. It starts at 0-0. There's a bounce back factor. There's an embarrassment factor that you've got to take into it.
And there's Jubilee.
And it's the Red V at Jubilee.
Would you like to be coaching the Dragons this week?
I think any coach worth his salt would be loved to be coaching the Dragons this week. They're the real challenges in football. I used to love to coach the games where people said you couldn't win or you're under strength, and they were the ones that I really loved coaching. Yeah, and the big ones, of course. But I think that's worth your salt as a coach, to be able to, an under-strength team against a quality opposition where no one really gives you a chance, and you're able to paint a scenario and create an image for your players that they can believe in and get the job done. And I think, I think that's where you earn your money as a coach. I think that's what sets you apart. If you can consistently do that over a period of time, which the likes of Bennett has done at different times in his career. So I'm anticipating a bounce back from Dragon. Will it be enough to beat Cowboy? Who I think, that win last week might mask a few of there. Again, I don't think the market's correct here. They've got Cowboys very heavily favoured. I think the market should be closer than that, particularly at Jubilee Oval, the Red V at Jubilee.
Come on, Gussie.
I'm going to go Dragon.
Yes! Got him! Very good. Helam Lukey's got to have surgery, by the way. Bad luck for him.
That's no good. We've got that other kid to come in.
Yeah, Vinay Fuyaki. All right. Off the Leichhardt Saturday night, West Tigers, Cronulla. Aidan Caesar's coming. He's going to start at halfback, and Sullivan to the bench. Sharkies, very gritty team.
Yeah, they're a quality side. To go to New Zealand and did what they did, and I thought it was a high-quality game for an hour or so the other day against the Bulldogs too, but Sharks just got on top in the end, and Sharks should be too good for Tiger.
Sunday footy. It's Combank Stadium, not a seat in the house, I'd reckon. Para Manly, the old rivalry that goes back decades. Para very respectable against the Panthers last week. They've got a player making a debut, Blaze Talangi in the centres. Obviously, no Sivo at the moment, and now who got who? Simonson's out, and also for Manly, what can I tell you? Tommy Talau got in. He's still in the reserves, but I don't think he'll play. They're saying Raymond Tuimolo Vaianga, who we've seen is a bit of a hitman. He's named on the wing. Nothing between them. Great game.
Yeah, Eel a favourite here. I think I'm on the Tommy Trebojevic train. Seagull.
Manly to win. And then to round out the weekend, another brilliant prospect with Newcastle at home to Melbourne, who have got Munster and Hughes missing.
Mm-hmm.
So Cogger comes into half like we've spoken about, and in the halves for Melbourne, it is Pezzett and Tyron Wishart. So I'm wondering, I suppose Melbourne are going to try and just tackle their way to victory. Well, they've still got Pappy, so they're not lacking some attacking spark, but both their halves gone. And Newcastle got to get off the mark at home, don't they?
I've got Newcastle heavily favoured in that one. So I'm tipping Panther, Warrior, Rooster without a great deal of confidence. Dragon as an upset. Shark, Sea Eagle, Knight are my tips for this week. And Dolphin got the bye. That's a nice reward for winning the way they did.
They'll be winning that.
I wonder what Coach Bennett does during a bye. What do you think he does?
Might go and coach a local A grade.
Eh? I wonder what he does. He doesn't.
Well, you ring him. He's your mate. Ring and see what he's up to. Maybe he goes on holiday.
He doesn't go to golf. He doesn't go to bowls. He doesn't bet on the races.
Maybe
he doesn't go to the pub.
Maybe he gets on the drink.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't drink.
What?
He eats chocolates. That's his only vice. He eats chocolate when they win. That's his spoil.
What, a chocolate?
A chocolate, yeah.
What a boring bloke, seriously.
No, he's not. He's actually very entertaining.
No, I know.
He is nothing like.
I've heard. I've actually never seen
like
him at a function or anything like that.
He's nothing like his public persona.
No.
Nothing. Chalk and cheese.
Do you reckon you get him on the podcast?
Chalk
Did he
and
talk
cheese.
to
He might. I'd have to go to Redcliffe, though. You know,
Well,
the mountain's got to go to Muhammad.
Otherwise, we'll go to Redcliffe and talk to Wayne Bennett.
Yeah. I'll get him on the podcast.
Oh, that'd be awesome. All right, that's 6 tackles with Gus for this week.
We're going to a podcast from Redcliffe, and we'll get the great man on the podcast.
Are you committing to this?
Eh?
Are you committing to this?
We'll do it at some stage this year.
Well done, Gussie. He might talk to you. He probably won't have me, though.
Eh?
He'd be happy to talk to you, not me. I'm not talking to that idiot. He's a member of the media.
You can go down and play golf.
I'll do that.
I'll just ask him about footy stuff.
And no one wants to hear from me when it's you two sitting together. Thanks, mate. See you over the weekend. That's 6 tackles with Gus, round 3. It's going to be super. What about the games this weekend? Grand final rematch. The old battle between the Roosters and Souths, and then the great rivalry between Para and Manly. Make sure you join us.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.